Hello everyone, I am Xiao Qian. There is a girl from Hangzhou. In the fast-paced life of the city, she gradually felt empty inside. Until one sultry summer night, a Taiwanese documentary awakened her desire for warmth and freedom. She decided to embark on a journey and go to Taiwan alone to find the answer. Next, I will use the first person to tell the girl's experience in Taiwan. As the saying goes, life is a long road, and you have to go through it before you know the cold and warm. I am a girl born and raised in Hangzhou. I grew up by the West Lake and lived a fast-paced urban life. But in recent years, I always feel empty in my heart, as if something is missing. Every morning, I squeeze into the subway and look at the people rushing around. What is the purpose of such a day? I still remember that it was a sultry night in early summer of 2016. I had just come back from overtime in the office building and casually clicked on a Taiwanese documentary. Coincidentally, I had just argued with my colleague over a trivial matter that day and was in a bad mood. But it was this documentary that touched my heart. The streets of Taiwan and the camera were full of human touch. The old ladies in the vegetable market were bargaining with customers with a smile. The proprietors of the roadside shop showed the lost tourist the way, and even the bus driver would chat and laugh with the passengers. The warm and natural atmosphere fascinated me, an urban girl who struggled in the steel and concrete jungle. That night I couldn't sleep, and I kept thinking about whether to go to Taiwan. Once this idea came up, it was like bamboo shoots in spring, and I couldn't suppress it. The next morning, I started to check the visa online, but when I excitedly told my family about it, it was like a basin of cold water poured from head to toe. Are you crazy going to Taiwan alone? My mother was anxious on the spot. What if something happens? Although my father didn't say anything, I could see that he frowned and looked disapproving. What made the atmosphere even more solemn was that my uncle came to my house to persuade me after hearing about it. Xiao, you may not know that I participated in military exercises against Taiwan that year. My uncle sat on the old sofa in my house. His tone was particularly serious. How complicated the cross-strait relations are, how dangerous it is for a little girl like you to go there. But the voice in my heart became stronger and stronger. If I don't go and see it while I'm young, maybe I will never have another chance in this life. The company I will join soon after graduation gave me a 1-month buffer period. Isn't it the best time? In this way, despite the opposition of my family, I still secretly booked a plane ticket. During that time, I locked myself in the room, checked the guide over and over again, and planned the route. From Kaohsiung to Tainan, then to Hualien, and finally to Taipei. I would use 12 days to feel the temperature of this island. The night before leaving, my mother helped me pack my luggage with red eyes. She checked my clothes one by one, told me to buy common medicines for her, and specially stuffed a bag of her homemade awesome cake, saying that I should try it when I miss home. At that moment, my nose was sour and I almost shed tears. But I knew that I had to take this trip. The day of departure finally arrived. Early in the morning, my parents insisted on sending me to Zhaohan's airport. At the security checkpoint, my mother was still nagging me to call home first when I got there, not to go out alone at night, and to check the safety of the place where I live. I nodded vigorously, fearing that I would cry as soon as I opened my mouth. After passing the security check, I looked back and saw that my parents were still standing there. My mother was wiping her ears and my father's hand was on her shoulder. That scene made me feel distressed and determined. I must come back safely to let them know that this world may not be as terrible as they imagined. The moment the plane took off, my mood was like the summer weather in Hangzhou, nervous and excited. Through the porthole, I watched the Qiantang River below gradually become smaller until it disappeared in the clouds. 2 hours later, when I set foot on the land of Kaohsiung, a humid and warm wind blew towards me, mixed with the salty smell of seawater. It was the first time in my life that I walked out of the airport alone in a foreign country pushing a suitcase. I took a deep breath. Taiwan, here I come. The first stop was Kaohsiung. I took a bus from Shaogang Airport to Formosa Boulevard Station. I was nervous all the way, afraid of getting on the wrong stop. But I didn't expect that as soon as I got on the bus, the driver asked enthusiastically, "This is your first time in Kaohsiung, right? Where are you going?" When I stuttered out my destination, he smiled and said, "No problem. I'll remind you to get off the bus." Along the way, whenever a passenger got on the bus to ask for directions, he patiently answered them. He was completely different from what I imagined a driver in a big city would be like. When I arrived at Formosa Boulevard Station, I was shocked. This MRT station is simply an underground art palace. The colored glass dome illuminates the entire platform in a colorful way under the sunlight. What surprised me most was that when I was looking around, with my phone in my hand, several passers-by asked me if I wanted to help take pictures. I have never encountered such a thing in Hangzhou. The first day's itinerary was the Yuhe night market. Although there are many night markets in Hangzhou, they are nothing compared to Yuhe night market. The stalls here are neatly arranged, and each store has a cloth curtain with the store name and price written on it. The order is orderly but lively. I stopped in front of a stall selling oyster omelet. The proprietress was a 50-year-old lady who waved at me with a thick Taiwanese accent. Come on, are you single? Come and try it. Before I could react, she had already spread a spoonful of batter skillfully. Are you from the mainland? You can tell by your accent. If it's your first time in Taiwan, then you must try our oyster omelets. I guarantee that you will want to come back again after eating it. When the plate of oyster omelets was served, it was steaming hot and fragrant. The proprietors even put a few more oysters on purpose. She smiled and said that for first-time customers, we will put a little more. I chatted with her while eating. She said that she has been running this stall for more than 20 years and many mainland tourists have become her regular customers. They come to eat once every time they come to Taiwan. We do small business by word of mouth. While frying the next serving of oyster omelette, she said that making money is secondary, and the most important thing is to make the guests happy and at ease. After eating the oyster omelette, I bought another cup of pie and milk. The boss is a young man. Seeing that I was alone, he enthusiastically introduced to me what fun places there are nearby. He spoke slowly, which was completely different from the vigorous and resolute tone of Hangzhou. Before leaving, he also stuffed me with a handwritten small note, which was densely written with recommended attractions and food. That night when I returned to my place, I lay in bed tossing and turning and couldn't sleep. This was only the first day, and I felt full of human touch. It seems that the scenes in the documentary are not exaggerated at all. The next morning, I couldn't wait to start a new trip. I stayed in Kaohsiung for 3 days, and I was moved every day. The most impressive thing was the owner of a small breakfast shop, a man in his 60s, who got up at 3 o'clock in the morning every day to prepare ingredients. When I said I wanted to try the authentic scallion pancake, he actually taught me how to make it on the spot, how to knead the dough, how to cut the scallions, and how to control the heat. As he talked, his whole person lit up. Before leaving, he specially wrapped a freshly baked scallion pancake for me to take with me on the road, saying that he was afraid that I would be hungry. This warmth reminded me of my grandmother's kitchen when I was a child. From Kaohsiung to Tainan, I chose to take a regular train just to see more scenery along the way. The carriage is quite old but very clean. To my surprise, this 2-hour ride actually allowed me to meet an old lady. She was also traveling alone. Seeing me looking around, she took the initiative to talk to me. Little girl, are you from the mainland? She asked me with a smile, and the wrinkles at the corners of her eyes were full of kindness. After learning that I was going to Tainan, she immediately took out a small notebook and wrote down the names and addresses of several stores. This egg noodle shop must be eaten. It is the most famous in our Tainan. This tofu pudding shop has been open for 50 years, and the owner has changed for 3 generations. As she was talking, she took out a pack of biscuits from her bag, which she baked herself. Here, eat on the way. She forced it on me. My son said, I always worry about you, but when I see a young girl like you go out to play by yourself, I think of my girl. She is studying in the United States now, and I am always worried about her. Hearing her say this, my nose is sore, and I think of my mother again. When we arrived at Tainan Station, the old lady waited for me to get off the bus together, making sure that I found the right direction to exit the station before leaving. This kind of familiar care from the elders seems particularly warm in a foreign land. The streets of Tainan have a more ancient flavor than Kaohsiung, with historical buildings and alleys everywhere. I stayed in a homestay renovated from an old house. The proprietress was a warm-hearted auntie. As soon as she saw me, she pulled me to chat. After knowing that she came to Taiwan by herself, she would help me plan the route every morning and would care if I got lost when she came back at night, just like taking care of her own daughter. At the egg noodle shop recommended by the old lady in Tainan, I encountered another heartwarming thing. It suddenly rained heavily when I was queuing. The store owner moved out chairs and gave everyone umbrellas without saying a word. The boss said that the guests who came to eat noodles were all guests, so how could they let everyone get wet in the rain? This kind of detail is really hard to see in the internet celebrity shops in Hangzhou. Then it was Hualien, which may be the most touching stop in the whole journey. As soon as I arrived in Hualien, I was moved by the simple atmosphere here. The streets are not as prosperous as Taipei, but the smiling faces everywhere make people feel very comfortable. I rented a bicycle in Hualien and wanted to ride to Qixingtan to see the city. Who knew that I got lost while riding alone and the mobile phone signal was not good? It was getting dark and my heart suddenly came to my throat. When I was anxious, a big brother on a motorcycle stopped. "Miss, are you lost?" he asked me in a thick Taiwanese accent. After knowing my situation, he took me to the nearest bus stop without saying anything. What touched me even more was that he not only waited until the bus came before leaving, but also wrote me a note with his phone number on it. If I encountered any difficulties later, I could call me at any time. Before leaving, he also reminded me to remember to check the time next time I ride a bike because it gets dark quickly in Taiwan. In Hualien, I was surrounded by the human touch every day. The vegetable vendors at the morning market would give me a few seasonal fruits, saying that it was not easy for me to be alone outside. The auntie at the snack bar knew that I wanted to try more local delicacies, so she always asked me to pay less and eat more. Even the uncle walking his dog on the roadside would take the initiative to introduce me to the attractions when he saw me taking pictures. When I arrived in Taipei, I originally thought I would face an indifferent metropolis. After all, in our hang house, the more prosperous the place, the farther the distance between people, but Taipei gave me a different experience. I remember one night I got lost in the MRT station and a young girl came to ask me where I was going. After learning my destination, she not only told me the transfer route in detail, but also walked with me for a while. On the way, we talked about our lives. She said that she had just graduated and was looking for a job and was confused about the future. Listening to her story, I suddenly realized that the confusion and pressure faced by young people on both sides of the Taiwan Strait are so similar, but here people are more willing to open their hearts and share their stories. The last stop was the National Palace Museum in Taipei, where I met a retired history teacher who took the initiative to explain to me the story behind each cultural relic. Listening to him talk about the historical origins of the two sides of the Taiwan Strait, I felt very complicated. Yes, we are a family. Why are there so many barriers? The 12-day trip was about to end in a blink of an eye. The night before leaving, I sat in the Starbucks under the Taipei 101 building and looked through the photos I took these days. Behind each photo, there is a warm story and a kind smile. I suddenly realized that the biggest gain from this journey was not how many landscapes I saw, but that it made me re-understand the relationship between people. After returning to Hangzhou, I found that I had really changed. I began to greet my neighbors, give up my seat to people in need on the subway, and lend a hand to strangers who asked for help. My mother said that I had changed, and I told her that Taiwan had changed me. Now I still have the wooden amulet given by the old man from Tainan on my bedside. Every time I see him, I will think of every little bit in Taiwan. Those warm smiles, sincere help, and delicate human touch had been deeply imprinted in my memory. This journey not only allowed me to see different scenery, but also allowed me to find true inner peace. Sometimes I wonder if everyone can open their hearts and be more understanding and tolerant. Will the world be warmer? This is probably the most precious gift Taiwan has given me. That's all for today's video. If you think what I said is interesting, please like and follow me. Your support is my biggest motivation to update. Thank you.